Mongolia is one of the few countries in our globalized and increasingly equal planet to ride on the back of a horse without any limit.
In 2005, Mila and I traveled to northern Mongolia on the back of her brave little horses, accompanied by our translator Chuka and our guide Dasha, from Lake Khovsgol to the Ulan Mountains in the eastern taiga, home of the reindeer herders, the Tsaatan.
18 years later, in 2023, we have returned to the re-encounter with the Darkat and the Tsaatan, but this time accompanied by our two daughters, Uxue, 12 years old, and Garazi, 9 years old.
In chapters 2 and 3, we told you that on August 5th, 2023, we began our horseback journey in the village of Khovsgol, south of Lake Khovsgol. It took us 3 days along the lake shore to reach a small plain called Jiglegim, and another 2 days to cross the pass between the Corridor-Saridag Mountains and the Bayan Mountains to reach Renchinelkunbe, one of the two villages in the Darkat Depression. In total, 125 kilometers, averaging 25 kilometers per day.
In Renchinelkunbe, to our surprise, we were met again by Dasha, our guide on the 2005 trip, and his wife, Bimba. They welcomed us into their home, where we shared pleasant moments reminiscing about that unforgettable journey. In the village, we also stocked up on food for the next 6 days, until we reached the village of Tsaganursan, north of the Darkat Depression.
On the 6th day of the expedition, we left Renchinelkunbe and headed north across the vast steppe that makes up the extensive Darkat Depression. On day 7, we continued our journey among ponds, peat bogs and rivers until we reached the base of the Sayan Mountains. There, next to the murmuring river and sheltered by a small forest, we set up camp and treated ourselves to a refreshing bath, which was as long awaited as it was necessary.
On the 8th day, we left the open spaces behind and headed into the taiga, with the aim of reaching a camp of reindeer herders, the Tsaatan, on a long and demanding 20-kilometer horseback journey.
The 8th day dawns cloudy. After packing up camp, we set off for the taiga, with Mama leading the group.
As we pass through this herd of cattle, a clear boundary appears before us, a coniferous forest marking the entrance to the taiga.
As soon as we enter the forest, a set of scarves called kadag tied to the trees reveals that this is a sacred place where the spirits of nature are honored and protection is asked for the journey. Let's hope so.
Mountains, extending from southern Siberia to northern Mongolia, are home to a vast coniferous ecosystem that forms part of the largest boreal zone on the planet. This environment is characterized by extremely cold winters and short, cool summers. mid-altitude forest can be divided into 3 subzones. The highest is the so-called taiga, of sparse, scattered conifers, located between 1,400 and 1,800 meters above sea level. It is precisely in this strip that we find ourselves, at about 1,600 meters. Here, the forest has an open canopy dominated Siberian larch, accompanied by a remarkable diversity of shrubs and herbaceous strata.
Garazi, gora. Tiratu soketik, tiratu. Hori da. Tiratu. Beti tiratu.
Zer indazu kotzi.
Tiratu.
The ground is saturated with water and at times opens up into soft mud traps. When one or more of the horse's legs sink without warning, the animal reacts with sudden jerks, tensing its entire body to avoid falling. The saddle shifts, balance is lost for an instant, and we must respond immediately. Lean the torso backwards, stretch the legs and fix the feet in the stirrups, allowing the horse to move beneath us while we regain stability together before the mud traps us again.
After nearly 3 hours of riding, we arrived in the valley around midday, our bodies stiff and our legs heavy from the effort. We decided to stop by a river to eat something, stretch our legs and regain our strength. We still had several hours of riding ahead of us before reaching the camp of the Tsaatan, the reindeer men, and we do not want to arrive after dark.
The path becomes even more demanding. It narrows between the bushes and forces us to advance in single file, pushing branches aside with our hands as they hit our bodies and faces. At times we have to cross rocky rivers, where each step the horse takes creates tension. We fear it will slip, that a stone will give way under its weight. Our technique remains constant, leaning our bodies slightly backwards, stretching our legs and holding on tightly to the stirrups, trusting in the animal's balance to get us through each crossing.
Seguí. Chau. Garazi, seguí. Vamos, Garazi.
After several hours of riding, we arrive at a new valley. Before us, wooden structures begin to appear, reminiscent of the teepees of the Native American peoples of the north, like those we have seen so many times in films. The terrain remains treacherous, and we feel every muscle protesting as we wearily approach the end of the day, which is now before our eyes.
We are struck by the fact that only a couple of teepees stand among the structures, while the others remain bare, with no fabric to cover them. We wonder why that is.
We stop in front of the first teepee, where a young man comes out to greet us. Mama and Mohuka chat with him while we wait for directions. The young man tells us that the rest of the families are coming from the early summer camp, located 5 or 6 hours north in a higher altitude area. They are heading to this camp, which is further south and at a lower altitude. We are at 1,800 meters, and he expects them to arrive in an hour or two, no more. He has come ahead to prepare the teepee and bring their herd of reindeer.
We are fortunate that he offers to rent us the teepee for 2 nights and tells us not to worry about him or his family, as they will be staying in another relative's teepee. We gladly accept.
From here we can see the herd of reindeer moving freely.
He also tells us that they rarely transport the skeleton of the teepee. It is left fixed in each camp, and only the fabrics that cover it are moved along with all their belongings.
Delgar invites us into the teepee and shows us its austere and minimalist interior. We gather that he has not had time to prepare the floor, which remains bare on the grass.
Next, he starts cooking a welcome rice dish.
Almost without noticing, the group of reindeer that had been grazing in the distance moves closer until it surrounds the teepee. We hear the clatter of hooves, soft snorts, the constant movement of bodies and antlers drawn solely by the search for fresh food.
I try to get closer so they will lick my hand, but the reindeer run away from me. Then Delgar smiles and shows me the trick. The reindeer are not interested in the hand, but in the salt.
Lehenengo erronka lortu dugu. Zazpi, 8 egun, zenbat daramago? 8 egun zaldi gainean, Jalkaletik, hemen ez dakit 200 edo, zenbat kilometro egin dugu? Zaldi gainean. 30 bide 8, 240 kilometro egin ditugu, Jalkaletik ona, Tsaatanak, azken benetako nomadak ezagutzera. Ekialdeko kanpamentura heldu gara gaur.
Bai.
Taigatik bide oso zaila izan da, ezta?
Bai.
Eta gizon honek bere denda lo egitea utzi dugu. Eta orain afaltzen ari gara, eta gero beste familiak ezagutza joango gara.
Eta orain batek esku guztia txupatu dik.
Ondo. Bueno, eta Uxuezuk, zer lagun egin duzu? Laurik, txakurtxo bat egin duzu lagun?
Gatzarekin ditu. Hemen dau gatza, hartzen duzu eskuan, eta azten da.
Bai. Oso. Txapelduna. Venga. Bat, bi, hiru, aupa, txapelduna! Lortuta!
Eta bihar egun guztian hemen, ni oreinekin eta txakurrekin egin du laguntxu bat.
Bai.
Txakurtxu bat.
Eta berando joango gara, mendebaldeko Tsaatanen gara.
Bai.
Hori da. Venga,
Agur!
afaltzela.
Ekarri zapi bat zikatzeko.
Venga. Garazi, lagaiezu, venga, fregatzera, Garazi.
It will continue in chapter 6. Do not miss it.